and welcome to East-West Connection Wrestling Podcast. I am KG, and Sig is also here. He is here on the West Coast representing. All right, we have a great show for you guys. We have Raw, Nitro, and ECW Hardcore TV. Kicking things off, we have Raw here, October 2nd, 1995, Saginaw, Michigan, as we were last week. We start the show with a little bit of a recap. Last week we had new tag team champions in the Smoking Guns, and that brings us to Razor Ramon versus the 1-2-3 Kid, the opening contest. We have seen this match now 3 times on Raw, or second time on Raw?
Second in the last month, but since the first upset in the Manhattan Center, it's been an ongoing feud. But yeah, this is match 2 in a little bit of a series here between these guys.
And the match turns out to be a series.
Yeah, essentially. It's a respect match. This one, it's all unofficial, but the Kid's looking to earn Razor's respect after some miscommunication the past few weeks. So it's essentially a 1-fall match. Turns into a 4-fall match. They disregard the finish in the 4th fall, but Razor just beats the Kid down pretty much unmercifully for a couple of segments of a good TV match. Finally, before he lays the Kid out, he's earned his respect. They leave his friends. He does the head shake, pats his little buddy on the head, and they walk out. So at the end of this match, the end of this segment, they're still on the same page. They've earned each other's respect again. So that's where we're leading up to the Kid still turning heel, but for right now they've ironed out the differences. So match. It was weird.
I wasn't a fan of this. I wasn't a fan of this segment. How did you feel about this segment? I was not a fan. Too confusing.
Yeah, no, it definitely came off weird. They didn't mention at any point that there was different rules to this match. So originally it looked like Razor won with a straight up clothesline, which was weird because the Kid popped right up. Started a little shoving match. And the ref just let him keep wrestling. They didn't explain it on commentary very well at all. If they did, I didn't catch it or understand what they were trying to get across the point was. But no, it was a weirdly booked angle. But I saw where they were going towards the end. So.
Yep, I guess they have settled their differences now, it appears.
At least at this point in the story, that's where we're at for now. So yeah, they've rebonded themselves as friends, and they're both on the same page against Dean Douglas and the rest of the heel faction, or the rest of the heels that they've been feuding with. After that segment was up, brought us to a little bit of a pay-per-view preview. We have the next pay-per-view coming up. It's going to be Diesel defending the WWF title against the British Bulldog. Bulldog's been in a top heel position since we started the recaps here, so that should be a good one. We've seen these guys have a couple matches before, and they've done some good work, so I'm confident this will be another good one in the main event of the upcoming pay-per-view. We have The Undertaker versus King Mabel. We'll see. I think a couple things are going to happen in the weeks coming. That match may get changed, but for right now they're promoting Mabel versus Taker. Dean Douglas versus Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental title. Again, we'll see this change a little bit as the weeks go on. Shawn Michaels is going to lose his smile in a couple of weeks here, and they're going to end up changing that one to Razor Ramon versus Dean Douglas. But that's all night of. So for now, we've got Dean versus Shawn on the table for the Intercontinental title. And finally, Goldust makes his in-ring debut against Marty Jannetty. Pretty much right off the bat, they're telling you it's going to be a squash. Marty hasn't been a pushed character in quite a while here in WWF. But Goldust will be on his way. So that's the pay-per-view coming up in a couple weeks here. Next up, we had Triple H versus perennial jobber to the stars, Barry Horowitz. But at this point, they were actually giving Barry a little bit of a push. He just had his program with Skip. So he's no longer just a 1, 2, 3 stare at the lights guy. He actually got a win, and he's got some TV time. So what did you have for Triple H before he was Triple H against Barry Horowitz, KG?
So Barry Horowitz, fresh off his victory with Skip. So he's got a little bit of momentum versus the undefeated at this time, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. That's going to change after the whole click thing that happens at Madison Square Garden. But right now they're pushing previous Blue Blood Triple H here, not Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. But before we started this match, or before it got underway, we saw Is OJ Guilty graphic. So at this point, for 50 cents, you can submit your vote. Guilty, yes or no, guilty or not guilty. Of course, the OJ Simpson trial had the nation, his attention. It was something that was very, very popular at this time, and very everybody was talking about it, even Monday Night Raw. So back to the match. I thought the match was started off pretty good, looked very technically sound. You know, you saw Barry Horowitz, enhancement talent. He could do some things in the ring, and of course, the background of Triple H, he had some technical ability as well, but kind of dragged out a little long. Triple H got the victory with his vintage pedigree. But yeah, not much to talk about here with this match. However, in the next match, match number 3, we have PG-13 versus more enhancement talent. I believe it was Al Brown and Sonny Rogers. So the first thing when I saw these guys, the first thing I thought was, where's Enzo? I thought he was a part of this tag team here.
Yeah, right. No, so, good call. PG-13, this was obviously a favorite of Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler spent the match putting them over. This was essentially their debut. You could tell just on commentary, they're spending some time putting them over. I don't know how Vince McMahon let these guys on TV. These two seem like everything he hates in wrestling. They almost look like, and not to trash their work ethic, because they're actually good in the ring, but just their look. They look like those garbage NB trash bag wrestler guys. You know, you see like they're just the worst of the worst. That was their what they presented. They weren't big guys. They weren't even in very cut up or in shape. They were just kind of indie looking guys. But they had ties with Lawler. They were the USWA tag champs. And for whatever reason, either as a favor to Lawler or maybe some kind of a cross promotional thing, Vince let these guys on board, and they were actually the featured act in this tag match. Like you mentioned, Al Brown and Sonny Rogers did the honors for him. But Wolfie D and JC Ice, JC
Ice, I believe.
Right.
Yes.
They put him over. It was a good match, but no, Vince didn't get it. Like you said, just the fact that he let him on TV, though. I don't know. Maybe Lawler had something on him. Maybe he had some pictures that he didn't want getting out. I don't know what it was, but PG-13 were part of Monday Night Raw. I don't remember it being a very long run here. We'll see them again with the Nation of Domination. We'll see them, but that's still a couple on the road. But yeah, for this run,
about that.
Yeah, it was so that they've made their way in and out, but this was an odd run. So we'll see how long they stick with it here. Back to the OJ graphic. I thought this was so funny. And especially just on this type of Monday Night Raw program, they're still in their cartoony phase. So to push as the poll question, essentially, this is what we do on the show. They're pushing their old poll question. Did OJ murder people? Like that's not something. I mean, it made sense because
for a kid show.
Yeah, right. The verdict was actually announced the next day, so it was totally topical. Looking back and doing some research, I see why they did it. It's not like this was a running weekly, thing of, did OJ kill someone? But it was weird. But they were playing up that they needed the media attention. They wanted to seem like they had their finger on the pulse type of thing. So yeah, right. OJ Simpson. I actually proposed that was going to be our poll question for the week, but KG shot it down. So
yeah, it's just it's a touchy subject these days, so we'll stay away from that one.
Sure.
So after following this match and the OJ graphic once again, which we will find out the poll results later in the show here, we have next week's big match, big 6-man tag. We have the two dudes with attitudes, HBK and Diesel, the Intercontinental and World Heavyweight Champion, are going to tag with the Undertaker versus Yoko, Owen, Hart, and the British Bulldog, with kind of a Camp Cornette thing that they're going to be starting here relatively soon, I believe. Camp Cornette starts after Vader comes sometime around this. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, I think we're still a couple months off from actually the stable having an official name, but we're seeing the groundwork laid at this point.
Yes, most definitely. And this takes us to our main event match, a very stellar match. Jean-Pierre Lafitte versus Bret the Hitman Hart. So tell us what you had on this match. I enjoyed this match myself.
Yeah,
what did you think?
Without question, this was the Raw match of the week. I know we don't break things down that specifically, but for the first show that we recap, this was easily my highlight of the show here. Just great work, and it brought me back to watching Bret as a kid during the initial run. Obviously, I never thought he was trash or anything, but you kind of he's underappreciated sometimes because of how good he is. He makes his opponents look like $1 million. And we saw this, before we started our research here in the month before, August, September, he was in a feud with Hakushi, who, while a great worker, was an essential undercard guy in the WWF, and he made him look like $1 million. Those matches were phenomenal. Same with the pay-per-view, and then, with the Raw match with Lafitte. But he had no reason, no business putting these guys over as well as he did. Even taking the wins, you knew Bret was winning, but he gives a lot, and he really lets his opponents have a chance to shine and get over. It just goes to show how good of a worker or an athlete Bret Hart was. So, but yeah, as far as the match itself, it's really good stuff. Probably hard to tell, hard to say if it was better or not than the pay-per-view match, but I thought it was just as good. They had one crazy spot where Bret body slammed PCO right on the steps, the back of his, just right down the spine. Looked real nasty, but great match, great TV main event, and led to a little bit of an angle after the match where King Jerry Lawler and Bret Hart kind of reignited their feud, their long-running feud here. It made sense too, as you look back at the match itself. Lawler kind of really played up the anti-Bret, standing up. They'd show him on camera, standing up, cheering for Lafitte. They kind of brought that back. They recycled that angle. It's where Lawler got in Bret's face, egged him on after the match. Bret ended up attacking the King, sending him over the guardrail. And then we saw the return, I guess, since we haven't seen him in a few weeks, of the evil dentist, Isaac Yankem BDF. Talk about your cartoony talk about your cartoony gimmicks. Let's just leave it there. This was not good. It was under Bret Hart to have to work this kind of stuff. And really, it goes to show why why he leaves in 2 years. He's just disrespected from all around at this point. So.
Yeah, I'd say underappreciated at this point. Bret's one of those guys that never really had a stinker. According by his own admission too, he never missed a date. He was by far their best worker at this point. Shawn's still kind of building towards that, I feel. But I still think Bret might have him in the, as maybe not as charismatic as a Shawn Michaels, but as far as an in-ring performer, I think he's just as good, if not better, than Shawn Michaels. So to see the belt on somebody like Diesel and see, that Shawn Michaels is still kind of moving up the ranks, Bret is kind of an afterthought, even though he still kind of has this ongoing feud with Jerry Lawler, who's still relatively new to WWF fans, but a big name from, many years before, especially in the Memphis area. So this is all kind of a ploy by Lawler to get Isaac Yankem, who's not soon to be, but eventually will become Kane. At this point, he's very green, so you're wondering why they sticking him, with this type of character. So definitely a good main event for the show, like you had said. But we end the show with Cornette with his tag team for next week, which would be Yoko, Owen, and the British Bulldog. Just kind of more heat there. Also, we have the team of Diesel, HBK, and Taker. With a promo, and then we finally get to the OJ poll, the much anticipated. So very, very close. Very very close here. We have a 49% guilty verdict and a 51% not guilty. So very close, almost right down the middle, Daddy. Very close call there, and that's how we ended.
Legit poll. I'm sure that they had someone counting the votes. It wasn't skewed at all. It wasn't a cash grab. No chance.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay. Real quick, I want to mention this 6-man coming up next week. I don't remember it, so it's going to be brand new to me. But I'm actually intrigued. You didn't see this very often. This is kind of like a super main event. It could have been a pay-per-view main event. All your big stars in one match. Since it's a pay-per-view build-up, I won't be surprised if there's a non-finish or some kind of schmaz at the end. But you have all your big guns in one match here. That's a ratings grabber. I think it was a great idea to push something like that for next week, and we'll see once we get to the ratings breakdown. For this weekend next, whether or not that helped the cause. But I'm good with Raw. I thought it was a pretty decent show.
Yes, most definitely. I have nothing else for Raw. I guess we can move right into Monday Nitro.
Right on. Denver, Colorado brought us Monday Nitro this week. This was the 5th installment. And right off the bat, you see, again, like I mentioned last week, there's a huge difference in crowd size or even just arena size. The WWF was happy filming in their, mid to lower range arenas at this point. They knew they weren't filling up the big houses yet. Like we'll see later on.
The small arenas.
Yeah, for sure. This was a downtime. And you saw it, if you're looking for that kind of stuff, if you're just focused on the in-ring action, then it is what it is. But if you're actually looking for the nitpicky, stuff like that, you see it when they do their big wide shots. It almost looked like double the house for Nitro. But same thing, same live, hot atmosphere. That they're really finding their groove when it comes to how to start a show hot. And this week we started hot with a crazy Ric Flair promo. He comes out, not to the ring. He interrupts the breakdown of the show. The 3-man panel. The show set up Bischoff, Mongo, and Heenan. They barely get the introductions in before Ric Flair does a crazy promo. Just totally insane. He's already in his gear or his robe. He's ready to roll. But Ric Flair, he's out there, brother. He's ready. He's hot. Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman have been getting the best of him for the past few weeks, so he's hot. So right off the bat, we have a reason to stay tuned to Nitro. Let's go to our opening main event. It's a double main event night. What do you have for our opening main event, Cage?
Well, our opening main event, as Eric Bischoff called it, would be Lex Luger versus Randy Savage. So we saw a quick recap between these two guys' ongoing feud. They're on the same team. Did he come to the aid did Luger come to the aid of Randy Savage, or is he part of the Dungeon of Goons? We don't know, and we may not get that answer as well this week as we move into the opening main event. Wanted to point out Lex Luger's physique. I know it's kind of a weird thing to point out, but I don't know that anybody. I know he's called the total package, but just looking back at it, I mean, the guy was ridiculously put together. I can't think of anybody that comes even close to him as far as size, and maybe the British Bulldog. I mean, just crazy. The first thing I noticed as Luger comes out. I thought it was a solid match. Randy Savage, another guy, almost like Bret Hart, never has a stinker. You could just tell the max effort guy puts everything into the match, everything into his work. He also gives to his opponent. He's not just, looking for, cheap pops for himself. As Steve Mongo McMichael has some very memorable quotes during this match. He described them as two mountain goats. So I definitely agree with him on that. Definitely a mountain goat-esque match. We have another ref bump finish, and wouldn't you know it, as soon as the ref bump, we have the Giant come out. So the Giant comes out and choke slams Randy Savage. Does not come out and choke slam Lex Luger. After following the choke slam, Luger throws him up in the torture rack, and the match is over. So Luger gets the win. It almost looks like the Giant has come out into the aid of Lex Luger to get the victory over Randy Savage. So solid opener right there. That brought us to match number 2 and the debut of one Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko, fresh from ECW. That is the scheduled match. However, we had some twists and turns here in this match. Sig, why don't you take this one?
Right on. First off, we saw the Disco Inferno come out for the scheduled contest. We'd thrown it back to the Bischoff and Camp to throw us to the next segment. Disco comes out. He had debuted last week, I believe, so he just wanted the TV time. He wasn't looking to interrupt anything. He didn't make a scene or anything. Just wanted his face on TV, which I thought was a good. I thought it was a good introduction, or not an introduction, but a good continuation of his character and where the Disco Inferno would be going. It's just looking for TV time. Doesn't want any trouble. Thought that was a cool touch. But we saw Eddie Guerrero come out, shove him off to the back without getting physical. This is my time. So we see Eddie and Dean get started, and then it happens. All right, now I've been tame for the past 5 weeks, folks. Some of you know me. I assume our ground base of fans. You are all familiar with KG and I on a personal level, so you kind of understand this. But it takes a lot to upset me, and they did it this week. It was the first time since we started the show. Total disrespect to Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko. Here it is. They're setting up on commentary throughout the match. Hulk Hogan's not here yet, folks. Hulk Hogan's not here yet. We're going to hear from Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan's en route via limousine. Now, that's fine. You have a main event story and a main event angle you want to push. You can talk about it. Still a little bit disrespectful to not be calling the moves in the match. That's one thing. Not a big deal. Now they cut off to the split screen. Kind of like KG and I. You see us both here with the split screen. Still not that disrespectful. Hogan's coming in the limo on one side. You have the in-ring action on another side. I'm okay with that. Then it happens. They cut completely from Eddie versus Dean Malenko. You have these two guys who have pretty much torn down ECW. With their send-off to WCW, you have an ultimate opportunity to make brand new stars right off the bat. But you've essentially just shown me and told me that they're mid-card guys, they're low-card guys. I don't have to worry about them because the important thing is Hulk Hogan's here in his limo. He's made it to the arena, and not just are we going to show you that, we're going to cut to a 1.5-minute promo with Mean Gene Okerlund talking to him and Jimmy Hart. How do you do this? How do you disrespect Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko like that? for an angle to see this is what happens. I got a headache in my eye when they frustrate me. This is why I try to stay calm and cool all the time. WCW, Eric Bischoff, you've done these guys a disservice, and you've shown the fans that they're not important when you could have had main event or at least U.S. title caliber guys right off the bat. They had a chance to get over, and you neutered them right off the bat. And it's and not for nothing, it's not like Hogan didn't have a 10-minute promo segment coming up next. So speaking of which, KG, what about it? Hulk Hogan has more to say. Hey, what do you know?
I'm with you. I'm with you, man. I'm with you on that. They were putting on a wrestling clinic. Just try to take a deep breath here. They were coming in hot, talking about this debut for a few weeks now. We hear Mongo McMichael mention the 101 sex positions during the match. And it's just the only thing that we have to look forward to after it was after Eddie got the win was Dean had asked for a rematch. So maybe we'll get that uninterrupted match next week or in a previous, the week after or whatever. It's coming. So hopefully, but yeah, for a debut, very disrespectful. So the very next segment, following the match, Mean Gene Okerlund is in the ring with Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart. I wanted to point out, I did at this time, I love the American-made theme. I almost want to say I like it better than the WWF theme. It's very similar anyway, but I don't know. I like it. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of it. I like it. I think it gets it's got a cool riff. You know what I mean? It's
okay. I think we just found
cool.
Our poll question for the week: real American or American made? But
yeah,
all right.
I probably know which one is going to get over there, but I enjoy it, so that's okay. Personal preference.
Sure.
So Hulk Hogan comes out and does his whole, he's got his neck brace on, and then he vows, even though he just came from the back, he goes back out to the backstage area to look for the Giant. Right as that's happening, as he leaves the ring, he goes around the ring and he's high-fiving all the fans. So this kind of to me is like, why are they doing this? Right. And then a granny, an old woman with a garb over her face, threw the dust right in his face and cane the hell out of him with a cane. Come to find out, of course, that is Kevin Sullivan. So right after that, we see the Giant come in the ring and break his neck like in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and when you go like this. So yeah, snapped his neck right in the ring. He was dead. So following Hogan's death,
Hogan died again.
Yeah. So after that, we have this brought a tear to my eye. The Hogan handlebar mustache, the Hogan stash, it was gone. It was shaved right off. They shaved it right off. They shaved his mustache, and wouldn't you know it, the Zodiac, Brutus Beefcake, comes out and cuts the locks. Cuts the locks right off. So crazy time here. We're building towards the machine versus machine match. The two. What are they? I almost said dump trucks, but they're monster trucks. They're gonna smash together, collide like two titans, and
WCW. I guess you could call them garbage trucks because the booking was garbage. But...
I said dump trucks. I didn't say garbage.
Okay, all
right. Anyway,
same thing for WCW.
Oh boy! All right, so we're gonna get back on.
I found it funny that Zodiac had done the mustache and he left like a little bit of like a Hitler stash almost. Like what are you trying to do? But no, it was funny. They made the Zodiac do the cutting. Like you have the whole group, and you make a guy who used to be a barber do it. Like, maybe they did it on purpose. Maybe they just randomly did that. But I got a kick out of that part. So, but this brought us to closing out main event for Nitro, the part 2 of the double main event. It was a rematch between Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Rematch from last week, I believe, or 2 weeks ago. At this point, it's starting to mush together in my head. We're doing so much research; it's starting to blend together. But Flair versus Arn, I thought it was another good one. A lot of technical work here, which I thought was solid. Same as the last few weeks, though. You're not going to really get many clean finishes on these shows, these Nitros. They're still pushing the pay-per-views. So while you're seeing the top matches, you're not really getting clean finishes. So Brian Pillman out again, cost Ric Flair one more time. So Arn now up 2-0, in recent matches against Ric Flair. And we're progressing this new Four Horsemen storyline. We're going to see where it leads to next week. Ric Flair is going to be looking for a partner pretty soon. So we'll see where that leads. But I thought Nitro was good this week. Looking at the ratings, this was the first one, man, 2.5 to 2.5. So last week's Raw and Nitro both did enough to maintain or build their audiences in one case. But the past 2 weeks they'd flip flopped. I think what would we say, 2.5 to 1.7, I think, or 1.9. So
1.927, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, right. And they had flip flopped that. So 1 week Raw was up, next Nitro, and now they're kind of settling in. Yeah, so 2.5 to 2.5. It'll be interesting to see because in just a couple of years, these numbers will both be doubling and tripling as the industry is growing in the Attitude Era with the Monday Night Wars really coming to a head. But at this point, we're into October of '95, and we're looking at the deadlock 2.5 to 2.5. So it's definitely interesting looking at who pulled off the better show and better matches. But that was it for Nitro this week. So
I just had a couple finishing touches here up on Nitro. I wanted to mention the fact during Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, they kept talking about Hogan. So I kept thinking now in my mind, after what we saw in Eddie, we're going to cut to the back. He's getting medical attention. There's something going on backstage. He just kept going back to it, so it took away from the match for me. Also, as you called the Great Wizard of Oz, Nick Bockwinkel, he announced a cage match next week in Chicago between, who was it? It is Flair and Arn Anderson, correct?
Right.
So as we don't no interference here. So, but we have not seen Nick Bockwinkel. We hear about him every week. He's the commissioner. Never seen him. This is week 5. Also, we have to look forward to the return of Sting, which we haven't seen in a few weeks, which is also interesting in my eyes. Right. So we have the return of Sting versus the Shark. We have Big Bubba Rogers versus Hawk of Legion of Doom, or the Road Warriors at this point, and the return of Sabu, who we saw debut a few weeks ago, versus JL. Now, JL, who is that? Who is that? That name sounds familiar.
Gonna see him turn into an ECW legend in a few years with some classics with RVD. But this is Mr. JL, Jerry Lynn. So we're going to see him with Sabu next week, and I think we're also going to see that at the pay-per-view for Halloween Havoc, I believe. So we got some good Sabu stuff coming up in the next few weeks as well to look forward to. And it doesn't last long, so it's going to be a couple matches in, and then they're going to have a falling out over some money. We'll see him back in ECW sooner than later. So.
Yep. Most definitely. So we might as well work our way right into ECW Hardcore TV, October 3rd, 1995. We start off with the beautiful Beulah McGillicuddy in the ring. Mrs. Tommy Dreamer, also, for those of you that knew about their relationship, which later becomes on screen. We have Beulah's box. So we hear about Beulah's box, and it's always open.
Right. Not always open. This is definitely a vintage away from the cartoony kid-filled WWF to start your show off with send your letters into the P.O. box for Beulah's box because it's always open. This definitely towed the line on the sexual innuendo that ECW would do from time and time again. I remember Kimono Wanalea up atop the ECW arena. Actually, they had time to kill because the ring broke, and rather than have the fans just starting to get upset, Paulie sent Kimono up to the top of the arena for a striptease. That was part of the course for ECW. They definitely were a more hardcore, more adult-based federation than what we were seeing on the mainstream cable TV at that point. So interesting to see the notes right off, see the differences right off the top of the show. Definitely a little bit more risque of a product for ECW. But that brought definitely the cage match from Gangsta's Paradise. As we've said the past few weeks, they're breaking down match by match. So we're still within that show. And the cage matches, we're opening up with it. It's Sandman, Too Cold Scorpio, and New Jack against the Public Enemy and Mikey Whipwreck. Of course, supposed to be Sandman and the Gangstas. Mustafa was out. Some kind of a run-in with the law, or whatever excuse they made for it this time. But Mustafa out, Too Cold is in, which of course we'd see Sandman and Too Cold as future tag champs coming up soon. So a good match, almost a little too clustery. You have 6 guys in the ring, 6+ because everybody's got a manager and some extra run-ins and whatnot. So a very full cage match, not traditional cage match. We saw some brawling on the outside too. So. A lot going on, but a good match for sure. And I think I forget the actual finish of the match, but I want to say the baby faces went over. the Public Enemy and Mikey get the crowd get all hot, and they were super over. So I think the right guys on there in the cage.
Yeah, most definitely. I wanted to point out too, there is a pretty crazy spot. There is a triple table spot towards the end of the match with Too Cold Scorpio and Rocco Rock, I believe. So I had not seen a triple table spot to this point. I thought that was pretty unique. Definitely a fun match.
Stacked on one on the other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So they're 3 high tables, right? Yeah. So
yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Unique spot for 1995, even for ECW.
Definitely. So a fun match. The baby faces go over. However, the heels come back and get revenge. Sandman canes Mikey, but then it kind of goes back and forth. Got very clustery towards the end. Sandman enjoys his post-match cigarette, as only he does, and we move into the next segment, which is continuing the feud here between the Gangstas and Public Enemy. We see a few months or weeks prior, we see that they jumped Public Enemy, they brawled across the arena, they had their bloodbaths. At one point we saw, I'm not sure if it was Rocco Rock or Johnny Grunge do a run-in right into a fan. I thought that was crazy. Not a fan in the audience, but actual fan that blows air. Right. So we see the craziness there. They're setting up for their big street fight that they're going to have here coming up shortly underneath a trestle. They're going to set up a ring here in South Philly. So we have that to look forward to. We also see a recap of when Jason had pinned Taz with the Eliminators. We get another Tommy Dreamer promo with Lance Wright. I thought this promo was a little bit better. I thought he kind of gave it a little more story, a little more meat there. He talked about, because his character was kind of, he's a regular guy, Tommy Dreamer, but he's been pushed too far. He's been pushed to the extreme, and we're seeing this side to him that we didn't know existed. We thought he was this clean-cut babyface, and now we're seeing that, he's in this blood feud with Cactus Jack. So following these segments, we see the final match that we're going to see here, and that is Mikey Whipwreck versus the Sandman. But before we get the match underway, we see superstar Steve Austin. Sig, what did we have here in this contest?
Now, this was pulled from an event in Middletown, New York, one of their common stops. So we kind of broken away from the Gangsta's Paradise show, but still within the same storyline, same time frame. So Sandman versus Mikey, like you had mentioned. Now, before the match started, Stone Cold, what's going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, superstar Steve Austin, made his way in, talked trash to the Sandman and Mikey Whipwreck. Kind of insinuated he wants the belt. He's going to be in the Top Guy program. But what's interesting to note is that this was a little bit of a character change from just the week prior when Steve Mania debuted. We had talked about Steve Mania as one of the focal points of last week's show. Now that was essentially Steve Austin denouncing WCW, talking crap on Hogan and Bischoff and whatnot. This was a little bit of a departure from that. He's essentially bigger than ECW, better than ECW. So a little bit of a character change there, just a change of direction, really. But it solidified him as a heel here, or at least the top heel in that position. Really fun match. They had the ladders and tables involved. There was a really fun ladder spot where Sandman climbed the ladder and hung off almost like the truss of the arena, not the truss. The truss is the metal stuff. This looks like a wooden building here, but was hanging from
something.
Yeah, there you go. Scaffolding, hanging from the scaffolding for a leg drop. Looked really brutal. He did a few of the table suplexes. That was a signature Sandman spot. I know we talked about that before the show started. That was a very unique spot for 1995. Terry Funk might have pulled it off. I know we did the spinning ladder spot, things like that. But Sandman was very innovative at using the weapons without using the weapons for what they were intended to be used for. So he brought a uniqueness with that. But fun match. Sandman, of course, would retain the title here. But the feud is not over by any means. If anything, the fire's been added to the fuel's been added to the fire with Steve Austin here. So we'll see some triple threat matches and some continuing one-on-ones here. But Sandman and Mikey is still an ongoing feud here. I liked it. It wasn't on par with the cage match or like a top match, but it was fun. Any thoughts on the main?
Oh, no, I enjoyed it. You actually took a lot of my notes right off my paper here. I really am growing an even fonder appreciation for the Sandman, of course, and he had got the victory in this match with help from Woman. I love the pairing here. yeah, his uniqueness and his offense that he had, kind of forgot about it. You think about the innovator of violence, Tommy Dreamer, or Rob Van Dam using chairs, but I forgot how crazy and unique the Sandman was at this point, and some of the things that he pulled off: the table suplexes, the hanging from the scaffolding leg drop, and the athleticism, because he's a pretty big guy and he's pretty buzzed in the ring most of the time, and it's amazing some of the things he's still able to pull off. So very good main event. We're going to see more from superstar Steve Austin in the coming weeks. So definitely looking forward to that. Going to enjoy that before he makes his departure. He's not here very long for the WWF. So the last segment we're going to end with here is another great Cactus Jack promo. I mean, this is it's almost every week. This was, of course, I love this pacing here. He started off very subdued, and he's going to build up to this crazy rant. We hear about his Uncle Eric. Almost telling Tommy Dreamer, when you get that big paycheck from WCW, make sure you hook me up, because that's where you belong, we're too good for this crap company that boos all this, that loves this, this violence, and we're never going to be appreciated. Wrestlers will never be formally appreciated. He talks about his losing his ear in Munich, Germany, and how the fans there say, "Well, this is just a big joke anyway, right?" And he didn't have the word for formaldehyde. Had he known the word for formaldehyde in German, he may have been able to save his ear, but he wasn't able to save his ear. So he talked about all his sacrifices that he made, and I thought this interview was the culmination of all the other promos into one. This is now the icing on the cake here with Cactus Jack. What were some of your thoughts on this? Another great Cactus promo.
You nailed it right on the head, man. This was the culmination of a week's build up for just guy talking, and it was brilliant stuff. Foley was knocking it out of the park every week, and such a master with words, and just a master with timing and pacing. That's such a big deal when cutting a promo. And Foley had it down pat. Just to reiterate, he's pushing Tommy Dreamer to leave this all behind. They're never going to appreciate you. Like you said, putting it all on the fans, essentially. Just brilliant stuff. Cactus Jack up for segment of the week again for sure. I'm sure it was between that or one of the matches, but this was really good stuff, and another long one too. I didn't time it, but probably a good 10-12 minute promo.
Yeah, it was, and I actually had to back it up a few times just to make sure I caught all the little nuances that he had there, because it's just really great stuff. And looking back at ECW here as we put the wraps up on this show, we've given them a lot of praise, but the talent level at this time on the show is just, to me, is through the roof. I mean, we talked about the Sandman and his uniqueness. Cactus Jack, who later becomes Mick Foley, Mankind, one of the biggest stars ever, especially during the Attitude Era. We had just seen Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko leave and go to and debut on WCW, even though it was a very questionable debut. We have superstar Steve Austin, so the talent level here is, and it's almost like ECW, like you said, gets thought of as a podunk, backyard wrestling, company here, but it's very, very high quality of talent. Well, it may not be high quality in production and some of the other things that we see, stage setup and all that, no pyrotechnics and no fancy, entrance. We had two ferns, two bushes that guys walked out of. There was no ramp, So I'm really enjoying going back and look at this stuff. So let's move to our segment of the week. My segment of the week, I would have to say, would be the Mikey and Sandman, the ladder match, or was it a ladder match? Yeah.
Not technically, but yeah.
Not technically a ladder match. I just liked how Steve Austin came out and kind of got the hype, almost hyped up the crowd even more, and the ongoing feud here, we added some more legs to that with their feud between Mikey and Sandman. We saw some innovative stuff. That'll be my segment of the week, the world champion Sandman and Mikey Whipwreck.
All right, right on. I like it. Mine, I was back and forth. I was really back and forth between something on each of the three shows. At first, I was going with Foley's promo because I feel like I'd slighted him a few weeks ago for my Mr. Wonderful hype.
We haven't seen.
Yeah, we haven't seen him since, so maybe they're done with that already. I don't know. I was digging it, and that was it. But no, so the Foley promo was very close. On Nitro, I wanted to give Dean versus Eddie the segment of the week. They had some really good stuff going, but when you straight up tell me that they're not important, I can't give it to you. So I'm going to go with Bret versus Jean-Pierre Lafitte 2 from Raw. I thought it was real good stuff, real good main event, good TV match, good timing, good pacing, good stuff all around. So and it's just real fun to watch the Lafitte stuff. Figuring this is 25 years ago, because besides the actual physical aspect of it, it's really like you're watching a PCO match. If you're familiar with this stuff now and you go back and watch, the style really hasn't changed much. He's still just as balls to the wall then as he still is now. So it's really funny to watch that, I think. But yeah, so I'm going Lafitte versus Bret, the second match in their series. I thought that was great stuff this week. So, but real close, you know. So.
Yeah, definitely, and we see that the ratings are real close. Raw and Nitro both in a tie. You know, we both a lot of things to look at with ECW that we enjoyed, and just to back up on what you were saying with PCO is, yeah, this guy's now in his 50s, I assume, somewhere in his 50s, and he's still doing his cannonball, as they called it here, or his top rope leg drop, and it's crazy. And praise to him, which we have done before. That he's still able to pull some of these things off. So lots of things to look forward to for the coming weeks. We're going to see, of course, we're building towards Halloween Havoc on WCW. On WWF, we are building towards another In Your House, where we're going to see Shawn Michaels, where we're supposed to see Shawn Michaels and Dean Douglas. My view of Dean Douglas, I know we talked about on the few, maybe we should leave it for the In Your House, starting to change a little bit. I'm starting to think that he might have been pushed a little too fast. I know we've been crapping on the Click a little bit, probably deservingly so, you know, because of other superstars that they've kind of chopped the legs off of. But I'm starting to see that Dean might have just been a little too green at this point. You know, he was great on the mic. I'm not sure he had the package put together yet, like we see as the franchise later on. I don't see it all there, you know. So that could also be for debate.
In that WWF style, as they call it, especially with guys like Razor, Diesel, and Shawn, they get used to something, or you know, a certain style with guys, and then Shane essentially came in as an outsider, pushed right to the top. So yeah, it is interesting to see, you know, if you're watching those matches with a close eye, where the mess ups are happening, and you know who's at fault and who's getting a little tired of who, because you see that a little bit with Razor. You kind of see him getting, you know, you can almost, if you're reading the body language, you see that there's miscommunications in the match, things like that. But like you said, we'll get into that more as the pay-per-view comes closer. We're not out of the Dean Douglas saga yet. We're close, but we're still in the midst of you know, the Dean getting his push. He's still going to end up with the title very soon, the Intercontinental title. So, you know, but like you said, we see it turning a little bit, or starting to turn, where the company might be souring on him. So good point, good call.
Yeah, I don't think he developed a style yet. You know, is he a high flyer guy? Is he a brawler guy? Is he a technical guy? I don't think he had a style yet. I think that was part of it. You know, it's almost like he was too big and too slow for a cruiserweight Shawn Michaels type, but not quite big enough to be a you know, a big guy, you know, to be a big powerhouse guy, you know, British Bulldog or somebody like that. So he was kind of in the middle. You know, it's a shame that we didn't get to see it all play out, but I think that's enough on Dean Douglas for now, and Raw as we move towards In Your House here in a few weeks, and then eventually Survivor Series is coming too, right? This would be this October, November. Yeah, later, so we got some. Yeah, we got some big things coming up. We have the big 6-man tag next week between HBK, Diesel, and The Undertaker versus Owen, Yoko, and
Bulldog.
I don't know. Bulldog. I don't know what's happening here. So we're moving along here. We're
running out of steam.
We're running. Yeah, most definitely. So we're looking forward to what we got.
Right. We got the cage match next week on Nitro. Not to cut you off. And ECW, of course, will still be running down the rest of Double Table or Gangsta's Paradise. So good stuff ahead next week. No pay-per-view. Still have an off week. So it's you know, if you're trying to do your research along with us, we have another maybe two hours and a half to 2:45 at the most for this week coming up. So if you like following along with us, it helps the program. I feel like if you've gone back and watched with us a little bit. But thank you guys for joining us once again. We're having a blast doing this for you. It's probably more for us than it is for you guys. We haven't really followed, you know, we're not getting the base out there yet, but we appreciate all the followers and support. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. So for me, I thank you guys. KG, finish up, wrap up for us, brother.
Alrighty, thank you. Yes, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, the likes on Facebook. We're trying to build you know, our little footwork here, build our audience. So for KG, thank you for watching East-West Connection Wrestling Podcast. Sig?
Right on. We'll see you guys next week.